I know why. Sorry about that. I had a technical moment. It happens to the best of us. I forgot to click one lousy little button. Anyway, welcome to the show tonight. I'm really excited to be here. I got this gentleman that I have on tonight. I have known for a long time. When we first started out as a team, one of my associates that I started the team with, Ruth Caldwell, was speaking with the team he was on, and she learned a lot of technical stuff, and a lot of it was from Kenny. From Kenny, and I'm really excited to have him on. Some people love him, some people hate him, but he always finds the truth. He always finds that truth, and that's what makes him so cool. Because anybody, anybody can go to him for help if you have something that you find when you're on location on investigation. You can have Kenny take a look at it, and he'll tell you the truth, whether you like it, whether you like it or not. But he'll tell you the truth. I'm going to bring him in right now so we can talk with him, and let's get the show going.
Hey.
How are you? How are
Good.
you?
How are you?
Good. Terrific.
Terrific.
It is so great to have you on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Most people would disagree. I think there's a lot of people out there who'd be like, no, screw that guy.
Oh, I know. There's a lot of people that said you hate mail.
Yeah, did you see the latest one?
I saw the latest one.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's funny.
I do too. It doesn't really bother me. So, I mean, it is what it is, and what I actually get out of that. So the hate mail was just general. It was just telling me, hey, you don't know everything. You have a lot to learn. They called me Sonny, which I was like, okay, that actually like excludes half the population of the United States. You call me Sonny. But then they just got into this, just that I don't know anything, and a lot of cursing. I mean, they really didn't like me at all, and I still have no idea why. They didn't tell me what I didn't know or what I said that pissed them off. They just, they just don't like me. So, all right, cool.
I just think it's that they just want their stuff to be real so bad that when someone comes along and tells the logical end of it, they get mad. I mean, that's all there is to it. They just don't want to hear it. And yeah. I know I used to tease the guys on my team. Yeah, I tease the guys on my team all the time that do our debunking. Where people will get excited, and then I'll be like, "Well, here comes so and so to crap on it all." But I mean, that's what you do as a team. You have to have that portion. We've got believers. We've also got people that come out and do the debunking part. There's nothing wrong with that. Right. That's what they're there for.
Yeah, and I'm not out to make anyone look stupid. I'm not out to make anyone look foolish or make fun of people. I mean, if anything, the way I see it is that I'm trying to improve the quality of your work. So I'm trying to give you tips. I've learned a lot over the years, and I'm not saying that I'm a know-it-all. I'm not. I'm totally not, because I'm still learning so much every day. But I have studied a lot of these topics, and not just the folklore or ghost stories that are out there. I've studied the science behind it and learned how to do things. And with my current job, when I write for Skeptical Inquirer magazine. So it's not like I can just post articles whenever I want and include whatever I want. I have to know my shit. So if I don't, then I get edited. I go through at least two editors, that fact check my stuff. So if I don't know what I'm talking about, they are quick to say, you need to fix this. So right there, I'm not trying to come off as a know-it-all, but I have to do my research. So when I present articles that maybe debunks a claim or a ghost hunting gadget or something, you can have some high confidence that the information is solid. But on that note, if you do have information that refutes something that I say, I will most certainly talk to you and we can talk about it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll totally admit it, and that's the way I think it really should go.
Well, you know what I find? I'm not getting any more photos from people that have, that take things with those apps, because I've got a reputation for shooting them down, because I've gotten into more shouting matches with people over those apps. because
Right.
they'll yell at you and yell back that they swear up and down they're real, and then they're not. And what people don't realize is that anybody that knows Photoshop or anything like that, you can click on those photos and actually see what camera took them, what the exposure was, how it was taken, how much editing's been done on it, and whatnot. So when they come up with an app photo, it comes up right away.
Right. Right. And
You know?
and you really have to look at these photos. You have to look at them, and there's so much. One of the things that I do come across a lot, and I'm sorry if I look all frazzled. I actually like just got back from work, so long day. I'm not at home, so usually my background is more colorful. But I'm actually for work. I'm training, so I actually got back from training like a few minutes before I went on with you. So, but with photographs, one of the most common things that I hear is, well, you can't figure out what it is because you weren't there.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I understand where you're coming from if you say that, but you have to understand that I've been doing photography for 20, 25 years. I'm confident in saying I know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of details in photographs and in video, because I do a lot of video editing.
Mm-hmm.
There's details that I can pick out that I don't need to be there to pick out and say, okay, this detail here tells me this about what happened with your camera. This other detail tells me what happened with your camera. So I can extract a lot of information based on what I see in that image.
Sure.
And again, it's not showing off or being a know-it-all. It's, hey, I have the experience and I have the background to support what I'm saying, and I can demonstrate it. I can actually replicate it for you,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. I love that. I absolutely love that. When I'm at a paranormal convention, back in the day when we could actually get together in a group,
Right.
but getting together and having someone come up to me and say, hey, I was recommended, somebody recommended to come up and talk to you, and they show me a photograph, and I say, you know what? I can explain it, but this is a situation I can show you. So let's try it. And we'll get their camera out and we'll actually go through the motions again. And I let them take the picture. And then they see how that anomaly was created. And I think that's the best way to teach, is to actually have them do it, because when you do it yourself,
Right.
you learn. So many times in the paranormal community, I'm told, oh, just wait. You'll be a believer as soon as you have an experience. So, you know what? I've had a lot of experiences, but I've taken the time to learn what might be causing that experience. So I can flip that whole philosophy back onto you,
Mm-hmm.
and not in a derogatory or mean way, but it's to say, hey, look, I can show you this and you can experience it for yourself and learn better. So next time you take a photograph and you see this weird anomaly, you'll be like, holy shit, like now I know what causes that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, a lot of people, don't realize their cell phones are their worst enemy when taking, paranormal photos, because a lot of the shutters are automatic on them, and a lot of the shutters are going to react to different lighting. Like I had a client who kept seeing things in their kitchen, and the room was dark, but the kitchen light was on.
right.
And I said, well, that's why you're getting this particular phenomena, because the shutter's reacting differently. That shutter's fluctuating on there. You're getting fluctuating light. I had to show her, just like you did.
So yeah, in that kind of situation, you can with enough experience, you can tell when the flash went off and it didn't go
Sure.
off. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times like that. What you're describing sounds like they
Mm-hmm.
probably didn't have the flash go off.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't do that, even though you have a light on in a different room, it's
Mm-hmm.
still considered a low light situation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that and you take a picture, even with whether you do it with a cell phone or you do it with a DSLR camera or
Right.
a compact camera, it's going to go into what's called a long exposure.
Mm-hmm.
So that means what it means. It takes a longer exposure. Instead of going like click, click, it goes click, click. And even the difference between like 1/60th of a second and maybe 1/3 of a second. It doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it so is. It really is. It can cause all these lights to shift. Like if you took a picture of me right now, like where the screen is looking, and you see the picture behind me, the picture on the wall. If you took it without a flash and was holding it by hand, these edges back here, these sharp edges, wouldn't be sharp. They would be fuzzy. And that's because you're holding the camera, and as you're taking it, you're actually moving it back and forth. You really don't realize it, but you do. So that can cause weird issues to come up. But
People
the
don't
biggest
realize,
thing is,
yeah.
and I'm sure you've come across this, is that when you take long exposures like that, and somebody walks in front of the scene,
Sure. Yep.
there you get so many apparitions that way. It's hilarious. I love it when the apparitions are wearing like the latest Nikes that were released,
They
or
come
like
walking in
shirts
the
with
photo. Yeah.
cool stuff.
So tell me about some of the cases that you've been on or that you've been asked on, or that you've been on, that you've been able to apply what you know to.
Well, I've done a lot. There's a lot of articles that I've done on skepticalinquirer.org, where Skeptical Inquirer is a magazine. It's a science, reason, critical thinking, and I'm fortunate enough to write for them. So a lot of investigations I've done for them all require this. So let's see. I mean, if we want to pick on ghost hunting shows, I've done quite a few with Zach Baggins, Mr. Zach Baggins, where he's promoted items from his museum with backgrounds that were not exactly legit. And the first one was actually Bela Lugosi's mirror. So Bela Lugosi he's the most famous actor to ever portray Dracula. Everyone, I mean, you've seen his picture at least. That's basic. And basically, there was a woman that owned the mirror, and she believed from family folklore that her uncle had owned a house that Bela Lugosi used to own. So there was this folklore with the family tradition, and eventually it came to possession of Zach Baggins in his museum. They had an episode. There was like an offshoot of Ghost Adventures where the owner of the mirror presented it to Zach, and they talked about it. And unfortunately, Zach made some rather bold claims that he had no evidence for. Specifically that Bela Lugosi was really into the occult. Like he was really heavily into the occult, and he used to do something called scrying, which is staring into reflective surfaces and trying to get messages from beyond and spirits and stuff like that. When I heard that, I actually was on the tour in his museum in Las Vegas when I heard this. So I decided, like this was something that stuck out with me, and I wasn't sure about it. So I was like, all right, let me look this up. So once I was outside the museum, and I was allowed to have my phone out, because you're not allowed to have your phone in the museum. That's a big no-no. So I went outside, I started looking it up, and realized that Bela Lugosi, one of the big claims was that he was scrying in a mirror because he wanted to contact his dead wife. So I was just curious, simple question, like who was his wife? Found out that he was married 5 times. 5.
Wow.
Yeah. And what's even worse is that all 5 of his wives outlived him. So there was no dead wife to contact, which, that's a big red flag in what we do. So I reached out to the Bela Lugosi family, and this was one of the things. This is why I love doing what I do, because I get to contact so many cool and interesting people. I talked to Bela Lugosi's son and his granddaughter, and confirmed that no, Bela Lugosi was never, ever into the occult. Never. And that he never owned the house where this mirror was found, and that he never owned this mirror where they said he practiced his scrying. So, I mean, between asking questions not taking claims at face value, contacting primary sources,
Mm-hmm.
going with all the records and verifying that he did not live in the house where the mirror was found. All of this led into, okay, this mirror is just a mirror. There's no legend to it. There's nothing to it. So, I mean, that's one of the better stories that I've done. I mean, I
Uh-huh.
love telling that story because it's just so fascinating to get to
Wow.
talk to people.
I wonder. Well, I wonder if where Dak got the information from, or if it was just something he made up.
Well, part of it, because I talked to the woman that owned the mirror.
Uh huh.
I did talk to her. Very nice woman. I don't want to make it sound like
Sure. Sure. Sure.
that she's lying or anything, because she
Right.
wasn't. She
Right.
had this family story that was passed on to her. So it was part of the family history. That was it. And
Okay.
there's a lot more to that history. I mean, unfortunately, her uncle, which is the guy that bought the house and believed that it belonged to Bela Lugosi, unfortunately, he was murdered. And it was a very famous murder that happened in California. And so her story was genuine from her point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think that her uncle, he was a very big horror movie fan.
Mm-hmm.
He was a lawyer, and he worked for a lot of people that were, I don't know exactly what the right political term is anymore, but maybe like underprivileged people that couldn't afford a good counseling.
Uh
So
huh.
he helped a lot of people that just couldn't afford a lawyer. But on the side, the guy was really into horror movies, and he made spoof movies. So the only movie that I know that he actually made was called Blackenstein.
Okay.
So it was a spoof off of Frankenstein, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a great movie. I mean, if you're into horror movies, like the classic, like low budget, kind of like campy movie, I
Mm-hmm.
actually enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Um, but he did this movie, and so you could see that he was actually into it, and he really loved the horror genre, and I think he really idolized Bela Lugosi. So he decorated his house like this. So having that kind of story come through your family, there's no reason to doubt it. You know, so I mean, and we talked. I talked with the woman that owned the mirror. We went back and forth. We actually talked on the phone, which was
Mm-hmm.
great. We had a great conversation, and I laid out all the information that I had. I actually sent her all the documents that I had gathered and said, I'm not just making this up. I'm not trying to spoil your family history here, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a great story. But this is what I found. These are the documents. There is no connection. And she didn't get mad. She wasn't upset about it. She was like, okay, you have the evidence here. So maybe my story isn't true. So that's
Right.
part of it. The other part is that Mr. Baggins likes to embellish shit. So he does take stories and goes like crazy with it, and makes it out way like, I mean, he runs a TV show where he's possessed almost every episode. So what does that tell you?
That's true.
You know, I mean, I can't go any further with that. He just embellishes stuff. And I mean, during his episode where he accepts the mirror, he actually makes the comment that he knows that Bela Lugosi was into the occult. So I know right there from the family
Mm-hmm.
of Bela Lugosi that that was not true whatsoever.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of jumped from photography to history
Right.
and
Right. We're
stuff,
just jumping
but
like crazy all over the place. Right. But yeah.
this is how it goes. I mean, this is part of it. I mean, I do a lot of investigations into photographs, but it's mostly, they rarely take more than like 15, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's usually because we ask questions. I go back and forth with someone that sends me pictures and say, all right, what
Right.
was going on at the time?
Right.
And the first thing I do when I get a picture is that I want to see it for myself. Like, don't tell me any story. Don't tell me anything going on. Don't tell me what you think it is. Don't tell me what, you remember from like 3 years ago when you actually took the picture of what was going on. Don't tell me any of that. Let me look at the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I give you an analysis and say, all right, well, I see this, this detail sticks out to me, and this is why. And I usually give a full report. One of the things I do is I do consultation work for MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network.
Right.
So all of the field investigators on the East Coast, I get pictures from them. And that's exactly what I do. They send me a picture, and then I look at it, and I give them a full, like sometimes a 1 or 2 page report of what I see. So yeah, I mean, it varies on what I do with photos, but most of the time you can pick out a lot of details, because when you're talking about ghost hunters in general, they're hobbyists. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but pretty much, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Most of the people do it on the weekends. That's what they do on the weekends for fun. They're not photographers. They're not video editors. They don't have this really good, deep, long-term experience to understand what they're actually getting. So when I give them an analysis, I'm not trying to make them feel inferior or stupid. I'm trying to say, hey, look, this is what I see. You didn't actually get what you think you got. So, let's this is what you can do next time to improve. So
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I know I have a policy, like when I go into a client's house and they hand me a photo, or somebody sends me a photo online, I say, well, it's really hard I can look at this photo and speculate what went on, just by going, like you do, like going through and analyzing it, because I'm a photographer. But really, I wasn't there. So for me not to be there and not see this, it makes it harder for us to say, yeah, it's something.
Yeah, because I mean, if you don't have the experience behind it, then yeah, the most you can say is like, well, it kind of looks like this, and that's where you get into, you would get into amateur versus expert opinion, and I don't like calling myself an expert, because I'm still learning. I mean, I love photography. I've been doing it, like I said, for like 20, 25 years now, but I'm still learning techniques, and I'm still going back and learning in like old techniques, like glass plate techniques. I'm still learning about that, which is fascinating to me, but I do have a good wide knowledge base, so that if you show me a photo, 9 times out of 10, I can give you a good opinion of what it probably is. And I worded that specifically because I can't say 100% all the time.
Right. And videos. I've seen you recreate videos.
Right. Videos are a different story, because now it's not like you're not dealing with one frame. And most video takes you get anywhere from 24 to 30 frames per second. So you're dealing with a lot of pictures, basically. But it's sometimes it's a few seconds, sometimes it's a few minutes. But that's good and bad. It's good because you get more material. You have more to work with than one sliver of time. Excuse me. You get more time to play with it, to look at it and say, okay, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. But there's been several videos. I mean, from the Dobby, the house elf video that came out months ago, where it was like somebody filmed on their security camera. They thought it was Dobby the elf, which it actually turned out to be their kid wearing his shorts on his head. So, but it was a cool video. It was really cool. But then you get other videos where, like I did one where I believe the gentleman was in North Carolina and he was doing relief work. So there was, I think it was hurricane damage, and he was a construction worker from, I want to say Idaho or Iowa. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But he was out there doing relief work. And as he took a ferry back from an island, he saw these lights up in the sky in the distance. And he swore like they were over the ocean. Unfortunately, when we got into the details, like I found the ferry that he was on. I know he was coming back to the mainland. So I could actually plot, I could actually find the route of the the ferry that he was on. So I
Mhm.
knew what route he was taking, so I knew what direction he was looking at, and found out that he was actually looking at the coast. He wasn't looking out to the ocean, he was looking at the coast. And what's worse for him is that he was looking towards a military base that was used for target practice. And then I checked the records and found out that they had actually done target practice that night. And
Mhm.
what he saw, what he thought were UFOs or lights in the sky, were actually military flares being set off to illuminate the target area. Um, and I went a step further and not only said, this is what it is, and I have records of them doing that night, but
Mhm.
the local newspaper luckily has a website and they put up pictures from local residents that took pictures of the same event. So I actually had close-up video and photos of the same event so I could compare it.
Mhm.
So very cool. I mean, once you start digging, it takes a while. Like sometimes mysteries, to solve a mystery, it usually takes anywhere between an hour and so far, I think the last one that I'm working on has been 7 or 8 years, and I'm still working on it. So varies in the time frame, but if there's enough information, you can solve it.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because I remember. I don't know. It was about a year ago. You did one, and it had to do with the telephone. I think it's a telephone cord or something that was moving around, had been moved, or the chair moved, or whatever happened to that one. I remember you did a reproduction of it and said, "Hey, yeah, this is what I think was going on." I was just trying to remember which one it was.
A
But you,
telephone
or
cord?
some, I think so. Something with a phone. I think I'm not positive.
Okay. I'm trying to remember what that was. I'm not sure. There's been so many.
I know
They all blend together.
you've done so many. I know.
I,
I know.
yeah, I don't
Um,
remember that one.
when you go on investigations with a team, obviously they're aware that you're going to be looking for for the logical part of everything. Does that bug
Right.
some people when you're out with them, or are they open to it?
Most of the time, I don't. Let's see. If I go to a public event, sometimes I sign up and I just go like incognito. I go as
Mm-hmm.
a ninja. I'm not out to call anyone out. I'm not out
Mm-hmm.
to actually speak to anyone, except I want to go to sit in the corner and watch. I want to observe what everyone's doing. And the only time I really speak is if someone's using a piece of equipment that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. What's it do? What is it? What's that button do? What's that light mean? Tell me about it. And they usually do. Other times when I go out, the team knows me, and I assure them like I'm not out to like call anyone out. And that's one of my rules. Like if I go to a public event, I do not usually interject unless somebody asks me a
Mm-hmm.
question. Like you have to ask me a question, then I'll certainly tell you my opinion. Otherwise, I usually stay quiet unless the information being given out is so bad that I just like you're like, "Oh my god, how can you freaking say that?" Like that's not true at all. So, I mean that's extreme cases. That usually doesn't happen. But
You
I
know,
usually
I've gone into places where I followed teams in, and the people have come up and said, "Oh my God, you guys know how to operate your equipment." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, the last people that came in couldn't even start their video cameras. They couldn't operate anything." And that's a lot of problem with what's going on in the paranormal world that I know of right now is that these teams go out with all this fancy stuff and they have no clue what it does or how to operate it
right.
properly. And a lot of them don't realize that a lot of the stuff they're using is used in practical stuff like construction. You know, a lot of these thermometers they're using, especially, some of the ones with the probe on there are used for air conditioning businesses and all kinds of
Right.
stuff. And they don't realize that they're not designed for paranormal. They're just things that they found, I don't know, were sold to work for paranormal, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word, I guess.
I think a lot of, well, I mean, basically all the equipment that is used in ghost hunting is borrowed equipment. None of it's
Mhm.
none of it's actually designed specifically for ghost hunting because you don't know what to measure. And
Mhm.
that's the basic honest truth. I mean, you don't know what to measure. No one has a ghost in captivity. No one has a ghost in a jar, except I do have a ghost in a jar at home, but it's not a real ghost. It's a cotton ball. But I mean, nobody has something like that, so you don't know what properties to look for. So it's
Right.
basically you're playing a spiritual or a metaphysical game of lawn darts. That's what you're doing because you get your K2s, your IR temperature guns, your static domes, your REM pods, all this stuff. These are all lawn darts that you're throwing out there to see what happens. And what's even worse is that the people that are using them don't understand that you need to control against outside influences.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, there's been plenty of times when I've walked through a haunted location with a two-way radio and I've made your K2s and your REM pods go off.
Mhm.
Pretty simple. Pretty simple. I don't have to be anywhere near it. Um, for example, the REM pod, I've done it from 40 feet away. 40 feet away, I've made that thing go off. K2 meters, about 30 feet. With just a simple two-way radio you get at Walmart. So these things you have to understand. You have to guard against them because if your devices are going off, it doesn't mean ghost.
Right.
It means the device did something. It picked up something it was designed to pick up, which is
Mhm.
either like electromagnetic field, static electricity, or if it gives off its own field, as in the REM pod, um,
Right.
something disturbed it. Something conductive disturbed that field. So if there's conductive material, whether it's your hand or a radio frequency too, can do that. A radio frequency can mess up the REM pod so bad. Uh, so there's a lot of things you have to think of. You can't just see the TV and say, um, okay, so I see it on TV that they put it out there and it lights up and they think the place is haunted. So therefore it must be haunted because obviously it must be a ghost. No, no, that's not how it works. That's how TV works, but that's not how the real world works. You need a lot more than that. So, whew, wow.
Well,
I
I've
don't
seen
want
it.
to.
I've seen it with those light up motion detectors that people have that
Yes,
they put down, and even a cell phone text message will set them off.
yeah, yeah. I mean the motion sensors. I mean it depends on which ones you have. If you have the passive
Mhm.
ones,
Right.
passive or active, there's a lot to know. And usually it's like that's the first question that fails when I used to go to paranormal conventions because we can't do anything anymore.
Right.
When you go there and you see like the big 8 foot table that's filled with equipment, and you're like, oh, cool, what's this? Oh, it's a motion sensor. And my first question is, oh, is it active or passive? And they're like, what do you mean? All right, well, this conversation is over because you don't even know how to use your equipment. It's actually not over because we go into talking about details and technical specs. But I mean, that leads into knowing your equipment. You really have to know your equipment. You have to know what it does, what it doesn't do, how it reads, how it comes up with the results, and how to actually properly interpret the results.
Mhm.
Just because a light blinks doesn't mean ghost. It
Right.
means it read something.
Mhm.
That's it.
Which brings me to my other topic too: is if you guys have any equipment that you don't want to use anymore, Kenny is the place where all good equipment goes to die because you can send it to Kenny and have him dissect it for you, and you can see what makes it tick.
Yeah, yeah. I take equipment, and I've been fortunate enough to have quite a few people donate equipment, and
Mhm.
it's kind of humbling because when you look this stuff up, it's expensive. There's a
Yeah.
lot of expensive equipment out there, and then I kind of get angry after I take it apart because then I realize there's only like $5 worth of parts in here.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this stuff goes for like 150, 200, and 250. I mean, it's expensive shit.
Yeah.
Yet you buy all the stuff from China because I like the static domes and the periscopes.
Mm-hmm.
These are all static based devices. They work off of static electricity. That's it. They all use the same exact solenoid, the same exact one. It's called the MPF 512, I think. MPF. I forget the number. It's been a while, but it's the same exact one. And I bought 5 of them from China for $1.29. That's it. So there's actually plans online from William Betty. If you look up William Betty and like a cheap detector, you'll see plans. It's a very simple thing. Under $10, you can build a static detector yourself. It really doesn't take a lot to do. And with that alone, you can have your detection device. But then you still run into the problem of if it goes off, what is it?
Right.
You know, like what's making it go off? Obviously, it's some kind of static electricity in the area, but you've got to find the source. You can't just assume that it's a ghost. You have to actually find the source.
That's why, like with our team, it's so important to take a look around when we do a preliminary, to take a look around the area, even take a drive around the area, because there might be railroad communication systems out there. There might be power lines running out there. How close is the power pole, to the house? The EMF coming off that and stuff, because that's going to trigger all that stuff too. So it's really important to look at all that, when you do the prelim and during the investigation, because the stuff might be running faster at night than it does during the day, but, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it's important. There's a lot of factors that go into this.
Yes, there's a lot. I mean, when you're doing EMF detectors is something that I pick on all the time because, and I actually built, I don't have it here with me. I'm not at home, unfortunately, but I have a K2 meter that I mocked up with rods to show you. You have to actually spin that on all 3 axes in order to get an average reading. So that means, like, if I'm taking like this TV remote and I'm facing it like this, and this is my EMF meter, I can't just walk around like this and expect to get an accurate reading. You're just never going to do it because it's totally against how you use it. You actually have to sit there and go like this, and then you do this. And then you do this. That's spinning on all axes, which means X, Y, and Z. And then you take the numbers, the highest numbers, and you average them out. And that gives you an accurate average reading of just this area right here. So if I move over here or go closer to the camera, now I have to do that again. I've had my K2 meter, not a K2, the, what is it, LTD? The digital readout. It's black. It's popular with the ghost hunting shows. It's a black meter with the digital readout. I've had that up to my microwave. So I'm making my my mac and cheese for lunch, and I'm holding it up to the microwave like this, and I'm getting nothing. But if I turn it 90 degrees this way, it spikes, and it goes up, and it almost pins it. So you're talking about a difference between like 4 or 5 milligauss and 99 milligauss. Big difference. Big difference.
Yeah.
With only turning it 90 degrees. So that should tell you how much you don't know about EMF meters if you're using them on ghost hunts.
Sure. And doesn't the K2 have a cycle? Like it repeats? Because I read somewhere from somebody that did a study on those that they have a repeating cycle in there. And that's why a lot of people think they're getting communication is because all of a sudden they'll start cycling.
No.
How's that working?
The K2 does not. What has the cycling is the static devices. Like the vortex dome, the periscopes, all these static domes, they use a certain chip that resets itself.
Okay,
so you can actually,
go ahead.
if you use one of these static devices and you put it down, say like this awesome huge 20-sided die is a static device, and you
Right.
put it down, when you let go of it, it's already reacting to you.
Okay.
So when you let go of
True.
it, if you give it, and I think it was between like 30 seconds and a minute and 30 seconds, it will do a reset cycle where it will light up the lights.
Okay.
And in the case of, let's see, the periscope actually has two sensors in it, and it controls one half of it. So, like one
Mm-hmm.
half of the lights is on one sensor, the other half is on another sensor. So, when you let go of that, it's different cycles.
Okay.
So, you might have the lights go off 30 seconds later, and then the other half of the lights go off a minute later. They're not going off because it's static, they're going off because it's resetting itself.
Okay.
And that's what you're talking about. That's
Yeah.
because I've
Okay.
seen videos where people put it down and they're like, they're asking questions, nothing happens, and they go up and like tap it, and the static electricity on them
Okay.
makes it react a little bit. And when they pull
Sure.
away and ask another question, maybe like two or three times, it finally goes off, but it's the reset. It's not an actual response.
Okay. All right. Just
Yeah.
I was wondering. Okay, you did a case, maybe about oh god, time flies with being locked up like we are. But probably about a year ago that involved music in a building where people had been hearing music for years, and ghost hunt teams were going in there and investigating, and it was all written up, and then you went in there and debunked it.
I don't think it was music. It was a construction site.
Okay, something
So
like that.
So they were hearing voices,
Okay,
and
maybe that's what it
basically,
was.
okay, so yeah, this was a case where it was a house, it was out in the country, and they were hearing in the dining room, they were hearing voices,
Right.
and it wasn't just like whispery, spooky voices like "get out" or "I'm going to kill you." It was like somebody was there just talking to them, and they were
Uh-huh.
hearing names, they were hearing orders. Somebody was barking orders, and it was only in the dining room. And it was pretty weird. I mean, when we got there, I got there and started talking to them, and I was in the dining room, and I actually heard it, and it sounded like somebody was right there. And I was like, "This is freaking cool! This is awesome!" I was very excited about it, but I noticed that the one window in the room was open, so I went over and just let's see what happens. Close the window, nothing. The voices
Uh-huh.
stopped. Open it up, boom! It sounded like they were right there next to you. Stuck my head out the window, and I could hear off in the distance noises like someone talking. But when you came back in, like going out the window, hear it in the distance. Come back in the room, I could hear it in the room. We traced it down to a construction site that was on the other side of the field, way back in the house, and they were using a megaphone. They were using like a PA system,
Okay.
and it was the foreman barking orders. And we actually had him like I went over, I talked to him, and I said, "Can you say my name? Like, can I call you and just say, hey, like, hey, Kenny Biddle, can you hear me?" And we go back to the house. I sent him a text, and boom, we heard it in the dining room, and it was just so awesome. I mean, first you hear a disembodied voice saying my name, which was really cool. So,
Right. Right.
but besides that, we actually found that it was the acoustics, and it was just bouncing around in the room, and it's kind of like, I don't know too many examples. I know there's one example in Gettysburg where
Uh-huh.
it's a concrete or cement like half moon area.
Uh-huh.
It's not an archway, but it's an archway laying down. And if you stand on one side and whisper, it travels all the way around to somebody else that's like 20 feet away from you, and they can hear you whisper. It's really, really cool. So I think that's what was going on, and we talked to the
Yeah.
foreman, and he agreed to move the PA systems, like the speakers. They moved it a little bit, and then never happened again.
The other killer thing we run into like that is mail slots,
Oh,
where sound will come through
yeah,
mail slots. I had a
yeah.
case here in Sacramento where a woman would fall asleep and she'd be in that little dream state, and she'd be hearing voices of people when she was half awake like that, and we realized she had a mail slot in her bedroom.
Very wow, really in the bedroom.
Yeah, in the bedroom, and it was coming in off the streets.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah.
So you run into stuff like that all the time. Now I know I told you, I guess one of your shows when you were talking about different debunks that you had done about one that we had out in the Bay Area where we actually had the camera going, and the client walked in and moved a curtain right in front of the camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was stupid. I mean, I don't know if they realized it was there or what was going on, but yeah, they moved it just to make it look like this curtain had moved. Have you run into anything like that where you caught anybody like doing that, or is it just something where you go in and you're able to just debunk whatever's going on?
There's plenty of cases where there's expectation, and I really don't want to say that it's always deliberate, but yes, it's sometimes deliberate. People are really trying to really make something. They're trying to get a reputation. So I've been on some ghost hunts where, like recently, last year, there was a woman that was on a public ghost hunt. She was carrying around a doll, like a doll. It wasn't. She didn't claim it was haunted, but it was a doll in her big. I don't want to call it like a pocketbook or a purse because it was like bigger, but she was carrying it around in there. And at one point at this haunted location, she took it out and threw it on the floor. And nobody else was looking at her. She was behind her group. I was hiding behind a spot, so I saw the whole thing. And she jumped and said, "Oh my God, something pulled the doll out of my bag and threw it." And I was like, "All right, yeah, it was you. you did it. I watched you do it." No, something did it. I had my hands out. I've seen that plenty of times. And then other things. What else is there? Oh my goodness, deliberate stuff. I'm totally drawing a blank here. It does happen where, unfortunately, there's expectation, and if you're there, especially if a group has this like they've been boasting about it a lot, and like, oh, if you come to this place, because I get that a lot, where I'm told if you come to this place, you'll be a believer. Well, as soon as I can get there, I will go there because try to make me a believer. I'm up for it. And nothing ever happens. So under these conditions, I can understand when people want to, help it along or make something happen. And I'm still trying to rack my brain to come up with a good example for you, but I'm having a brain fart, so I can't think of anything right now. But if it pops up in my head, I'll interrupt what we're talking about.
Okay, I was just thinking too that it's not only paranormal stuff that you work on, and I remember you signing up for the Peter Popoff stuff.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
That was just more for I wanted to see how far it would go, mostly without responding, because Peter Popoff, if you don't know who he is, he's a religious fanatic. He's a televangelist, and he has commercials that come on usually late night or on the weekends, where if you call a certain number or sign up for his newsletter, you get this you get this veil of holy water, and it's supposed to be like healing water and miracle water. And I like oddities, so that immediately attracted me. Like, okay, I want that. I want this miracle water, but I know that if I do this, it's gonna be a lot. Like, it's gonna be involved. So I signed up for it, got my first letter, and got the holy water, the miracle water. It was basically like, I work in the medical field, so I see these little plastic containers of saline all the time. And it was just that with a little wording printed on it about Peter Popoff miracle water. That was it. So I know he spent like 2 cents on it, but it came in this big thick envelope. When I unfolded the papers, I mean, it's not your 8.5 by 11. It was like a huge piece of paper, and there was about 10 of them. I ignored it because it looked like a very standard form where it's already printed up. It looked like when you get like used car announcements and advertisements in the
Yeah.
mail. It's all pre-printed stuff, and they just insert your name. That was it. It was that. So I ignored it. And then 2 days later, I got another envelope. 2 days later, I got another envelope. And this went on for about 3 weeks. I have a shoebox, like an old school shoebox, that's filled with all the letters that he sent me. And they're all form letters, but each one of them came with like this little toy. Sometimes it was a piece of string that he said was like part of a holy cloth. Sometimes it was a plastic horn, and it really looked like when you go to like oh man, the old like five and dime stores and the penny toys that you would get at the counter. It looked like that. It was that cheap, but it was in the shape of like a spiritual horn, like a religious horn. And he said, this is a gift, and if you send me like $20, I'll pray for you and the special prayers. That's what the letters were. They were basically telling you, if you send me money, I will pray for you and you will become really rich and all your problems will go away. Except when I didn't send the money, he sent me another thing thanking me for continuing my sponsorship. And then if I prayed some more and sent more money in, I'd get more benefits. Which, I mean, if you have perfect health and lots of money, I don't know what else, what other benefits you're going to get. But it didn't matter what I did because I didn't do anything. Like I did nothing. But I wish if I was home, I would show you because it's actually right next to my desk where I do my podcast. Right. But it's a full shoebox of just these letters after letters and the toys that they sent me. And eventually it stopped. Eventually
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was interesting because I used to post pictures of all the pages and let people read them and just be like, wow, this is a lot of bullshit.
That's just crazy. I have a question from the room. Are you a believer or a hardened skeptic? Has there been anything you have witnessed that you can't scientifically explain?
So let's see. 3 questions. No, probably. And then, is there anything I have witnessed that I can't scientifically explain? Of course. Because, and this is a question I do get often. The answer does not mean that I saw a ghost. It does not mean that I saw something paranormal or an alien or a Bigfoot. It means that I did not have enough information in order to solve the case or in order to understand what I experienced. And that's a big difference. It's a really big difference. I don't jump to conclusions. I don't leap to like faith-based conclusions. I really need evidence. That's where the hardcore skeptic kind of comes in because I do need evidence to support my conclusion. So if I go to a place and like maybe I see a shadow figure down the end of the hall and I go down to the end of the hall, I don't see any shadow figure running around. I don't see any cars like off in the distance through the windows that may have caused it. I don't see anything at that time that would cause it. I walk away with my conclusion being, I don't know what happened. That's my conclusion. Because if I walk away saying, I saw a ghost, to me, I'm making up a conclusion. Because I really have nothing to back it up. I mean, I saw a shadow. I see shadows all the time. Every night I see shadows. But most of the time I can explain them because I see the cause of the shadow. If something happens, I mean, especially if you're in like an abandoned place. I mean, I'm sure you've been to places like old asylums or stuff like that where the hallways are like forever. You can't make it down there in a few seconds. You can't get to the scene where you actually saw something in a few seconds. And if you can't, I mean, you can imagine that if somebody was outside with a flashlight and they kind of went by that window and you happen to look down that hallway at the same exact time, you coincide with that, but that event is over. That person outside that caused it kept moving on, kept walking away. You're not going to know that. and it's just lost. It's a lost opportunity. So there's been plenty of opportunities like that. There's plenty of experiences like that where I just don't have enough information. So if you don't have enough information, yes, you cannot scientifically explain something,
Right.
because
Right.
that's what science is. We need information. That's it.
Absolutely.
So I hope that answered your question.
um, Another question I have for you is that you have people that love you, you have people that hate you. What do you say to the haters?
Come talk to me. One of the best compliments I ever get is when someone comes up to me, we have a conversation for 5 or 10 minutes, and they stop and say, you know, I really thought you were a total asshole before. But now that they talk to me, they don't think that. And that's by reputation. Like if you have never talked to me, if we've never interacted,
Right.
and you're getting your information about me from other people, and it's all negative, maybe, I mean, I get it if they're friends or colleagues and you're like, all right, I do rely on the opinion of my friends. But if it's so negative, maybe, just maybe, think about why they don't like me. Maybe it's because they showed me a picture and I didn't agree with what they thought it was. Maybe it showed me a video. Maybe they had a device that they were trying to sell or something, and I kind of pointed out a flaw. This happens. If you don't like me because of that, then that's on you. That's not on me. That really is not my problem. I will stop and help anyone. I mean, there's almost anyone. People that really I don't like, if they've reached out and just said, "Hey, I have a question. I just want your opinion." And the initial impression is like, "Oh fuck, here we go, here we go. They're going to ask me a question. They're going to hate me," but I'm still going to give them an opinion. I'm still going to tell them what I think, and I'm not going to say it just because I don't like them. I'm not going to say it just because we've had past interactions that didn't go well. I'm going to give them my honest opinion, and what they do with that is up to them. And I've had people, I mean, there's plenty of people that I'm good friends with that we've clashed, like we've butted heads. I mean, the podcast I do Saturday nights, Three Tortured Souls, Dave and I we butted heads, something fierce sometimes. But we are still friends. We're still good because he comes from a science background and he understands, like, we don't have to disagree. Or we don't have to agree. We can disagree.
Yeah.
And still get along. And I still go to him for advice. He still comes to me for advice, even though we don't agree on a lot of stuff. So if the haters are out there, if people are out there and they don't like me, think about why. Why don't you like me? If you want to hate me, okay. I'm not out to impress you. I'm not out to impress everyone or anyone. I do what I do because I want to do it. And that's it. I mean, I have my own philosophy that if I think something's being promoted and it's false and it might potentially hurt somebody or mislead somebody, then I want to look into it. I don't want people spending their money for nothing. I don't want people, spending their time on something that is wasteful. If you're pretending to talk to someone's dead loved ones and profiting off of it, I find that disgusting. And especially because I've had the opportunity to work on missing person cases in real time. And if you're pretending that you have these leads and you can find the missing person case or missing the person that's missing, if you can find them and you're just bullshitting people to get attention, then I think you're the pure scum of the earth. And I think you need to be called out. So I hope that answered the question.
It did. It made sense. I have another question that says, have you ever seen the documentary The Enfield Poltergeist?
I'm not sure if I saw the exact one you're talking about, but I am familiar with the case. I've looked into it quite a few times, and I know that there is a lot of flaws with it, especially with what. Oh, man, I'm not up to date on it, but the young girl that allegedly was possessed, and I think she said that she was possessed by the spirit of Bill Wilkins.
I remember
Bill
that case.
Wilkins, yes. Um, and the comments that she makes on audio tape. So they have recorded interviews with her, where she's allegedly possessed by the spirit of Bill Wilkins. She gave some information that was correct, but it was also it was verified that she was living in the house next door to people that were familiar with the previous owners, which was Bill Wilkins. So him dying in the house in the chair was common knowledge. The big problem I have with that case is that when she gave specifics of where Bill was buried, what he died of, and there was one other thing: what he died of, where he was buried, and his age, his actual age when he died. They were incorrect. They were not. They were not the right age. It was not the right cause of death, and she got the wrong cemetery. And I actually have his death record. I have Bill Welcome's death certificate that actually states clearly what he died of, his age, and I also know where he's buried. So I have big problems with that case because of that. I also have big problems because the Warrens actually say that they were really heavily involved with that, and they weren't. They weren't as involved as they claimed, or the movie claimed. They were actually they approached Ed Warren actually approached the SPR, the Society for Psychical Research, when they were currently investigating the case, and they told him, "Go away." Like they said, "No, we don't need your help. Go away." There was a lot of stuff that was made up afterwards. So I am familiar with the Enfield case. So I don't know if that answered your question. I mean, that was a general question, but I don't know if you had anything specific about it or if you were just looking for in general, Angela. But thanks for the question. That was cool.
Thank you for answering. Well, this hour flew by really fast, Kenny. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah,
Thank you. It was fantastic.
It
was really fun, and let everybody know how they can see your shows.
So I go live every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern on Facebook and YouTube. On Facebook, it's usually from the WLFE-DB radio network. And then I share that to like my personal page, Kenny Biddle, or my blog page, I am Kenny Biddle. And then I share it to my YouTube channel, which is under Kenny Biddle. Yeah, just that. Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I do a podcast called Three Tortured Souls with Dave Schumacher and Tim Vickers. We actually take one topic from the paranormal and we do a deep dive. We just discuss the shit out of it from all different angles too, which is great. Three of us with different perspectives, and we all attack this one topic. And it turned out to be a really cool show. The show that I do on Friday night is an open Q&A too. It's called the Skeptical Help Bar. So you can actually come on if you have questions about anything about paranormal. I will try to answer it from a skeptical point of view, but I don't know everything, so I might not have an answer. But the great thing is I can look it up because it's a 2-hour live show. I can do whatever I want. we drink. We also drink during the show, which is fun. But I look stuff up and I'll give you opinions, or I might write it down on my handy notepad that I keep with me, and then I look it up later and I get back to you. Besides that, I mean, you can look for my articles on skepticalinquirer.org, which is a science magazine that I write for. I have a column there, and there's plenty of order. There's like 40, 45 articles up there now, so you can check it out. And that's about it.
I have one more question, Karen. Last question, guys. What about faith-based exorcisms?
That's a tough one. Because faith-based exorcisms depend entirely off of faith-based beliefs. So if you don't believe in the stuff, it's not going to work, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
If you do, there's the question of the placebo effect, which
Right.
if you're this is a very tough subject to talk about because there's so many things involved, not just the opinion of a skeptic or a ghost hunter. There's a lot of psychological issues, and definitely issues where if you're talking about bipolar or personality disorder, there's a lot of issues that can come into play. If someone is believed to be possessed, I would say the first thing you need to do is go see a doctor. You need to see a professional. Go see your family doctor first, and then go on the recommendations of that doctor. Um, I see you disagree, and that's cool. I mean, you can disagree all you want, but my concern is more for the person that is allegedly possessed because their safety is an issue now. And I've seen faith-based exorcisms, home exorcisms. I've seen how violent they become. I see how disorderly, how just basically it's a psychological mind fuck that goes on sometimes. And I don't trust them. I just don't. I suggest you see a professional, and that's the way to go. I mean, I'm not only a skeptic, I'm a science-based skeptic. So science-based medicine is where I go. I say, see your doctor, and if your doctor recommends a psychologist, a psychiatrist, go see them, and then see what's going on because there might be something else besides a faith-based conclusion going on. Um, and if there is, and you don't seek proper medical attention, you could be doing more damage. You could potentially be the cause of that person hurting themselves or eventually dying, through either suicide or hurting other people. They could hurt somebody else, or kill somebody else, and the whole thing might come back to you because you didn't get the proper channels. So be very careful with this. Ghost hunters, as a stereotype, ghost hunters usually think themselves experts in a lot of fields that they are not experts in, and
No.
they can do more harm than good. And I can't stress that enough. I really can't.
Gotcha.
And I don't know about working alongside real exorcist Catholic priests. I mean, I mean that's going to get into a whole new topic, and we'd have to discuss that in more details and actually verify other things. So yeah, it looks like questions are going to go into more detailed, and this will be another hour or two at least that we would go to.
Gotcha. Anyway, well, thank you very much, Kenny. I appreciate it, and
You're welcome.
I'll be visiting you on your show, obviously, because I pop in from time to time.
I know, love
But
it.
I love talking to you. It's fun. It's fun listening to you. And like I said, we kind of go back a long way without really realizing it because a friend of a friend of a friend, and then
Right.
it's gone from there to where I have followed your career through this
Thank you.
real
Thank you.
closely, and I've always admired you and what you do. In fact, if it wasn't for you and your first group, we wouldn't be doing our techno stuff, our tech stuff when we go out, as far as our cameras and how the camera spread goes out, what
Awesome.
direction we're pointing them and all this stuff. That's from you. That was part of
Awesome.
what you guys had. So
Thank
we
you.
still apply a lot of that stuff.
Thank you
So
very much.
thank you. So you have a good evening,
I
and
will.
I really appreciate you coming on, and I hope to get you back on sometime.
I will come back anytime you want. Just let me
Sounds good.
know, and we'll set it up. But
All
yeah,
right, buddy.
it's been a long day. I'm gonna go to
All
bed.
right. Go call it a night, buddy. All right. Thanks,
All
buddy.
right, man.
Talk to
Take
you
it
later.
easy.
All right.
Bye bye.
See you. All right. Well, that was my good friend Kenny. My good friend Kenny that I've followed for years. Like I said, it was great to have him on. Next week we are going to have Clint Keith on, who wrote the book about the ghost of Greystone Manor, a haunted manor in Beverly Hills. He's going to be joining us next week. And just a heads up, I know we're all on lockdown here in California, But I'm going to give you guys a little treat on lockdown. We're going to go ahead for the people that can't get out, and besides, I can't get out either, but I'm going to go anyway. We're going to go do some Christmas light tours this weekend, and I got myself a special mic for my iPhone, and so you guys are going to hear us dictating. You can hear my lovely voice. And it'll probably be about 8:30 p.m. Pacific time Friday night. We're going to be in one of the big light areas in Sacramento. So be on the lookout for that on my regular Facebook Live. And like I said, next week, Ghosts of Greystone. So we'll see you here, same place, same time. Have a good one, you guys.